From the moment she blossomed into a beautiful young woman, trouble seemed to follow Panayota wherever she went. And that trouble, I'm sure her cousin Athanasiu would have insisted, had a name: George Nitsos. Charming, gregarious, slippery, George Nitsos had no regard for the conservative mores of his community. He was the kind of young man who inspired fathers to keep their daughters under lock and key. The kind of young man whose smile said one thing while his eyes said another. After he took an interest in my aunt, it wasn't long before she found herself the subject of village gossip. Athanasiu was serving as Panayota's chaperone the night she was forced to reveal a terrible secret to her family. "Are you ready?" he asked, after helping her dismount from his horse. At the moment, his gaze rested on his frightened cousin, who he knew was about to receive a severe tongue-lashing from the rest of the family. Though he didn't approve of Panayota's errant ways, Athanasiu nevertheless felt sympathy for her plight. The two had just returned from the nearby bigger village, where she had met with a doctor at his office for her second virginity test. The first test, conducted weeks earlier under nebulous conditions, had yielded unclear results and had earned the headstrong young girl a stern reprimand from her family. This time, however, the findings were incontrovertible. She was no virgin. "Yes," Panayota said nervously. Athanasiu nodded stoically and turned to secure his horse outside her family's 2-story stone residence. Panayota disappeared inside to face her family. Athanasiu, hoping to spare Panayota the prying eyes and wagging tongues of her fellow villagers, had waited for darkness to fall before escorting her home from the doctor's office. During the ride, Panayota had admitted she'd indeed had sex with George. She liked him. He had pledged to marry her. There was only one solution, thought Athanasiu, still trying to shake off the embarrassment he'd felt at the doctor's office. George would have to make good on his promise. Unfortunately, nothing could be done to protect Panayota from her family's scorn. By the time Athanasiu had followed his cousin inside, every adult member of her family, her mother, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, was looking at her expectantly. Had she failed the test? Panayota, staring at her feet, spoke in a hushed tone. "The doctor said I'm not a virgin." Athanasiu found the tension in the home nearly unbearable. Would they chop her into pieces and throw her into the brook, as one of her elders had warned her only a few short weeks ago? He suspected such talk was exaggerated, but he also knew the emotions that fueled it were combustible. Who would speak first? Skevi, Panayota's widowed mother? One of her uncles or aunts? A grandparent? A cousin? What kind of invective would they spit at the fearless young girl? James, Panayota's younger brother, was the first to react, but not with words. He leapt at his sister, shoving her violently toward the fireplace. Panayota lost her balance and fell backward into the burning embers, while Athanasiu and the other men rushed forward to restrain James. A screaming Panayota pulled herself from the fireplace with the help of the women, who were now furiously beating the flames from the girl's clothing. Singed, but not seriously injured, she turned and fled outside as soon as the flames had been tamped out, leaving behind the stench of burnt fabric.